While Hong Kong was engulfed in an unprecedented political crisis, an unexpected event occurred. A 15-year-old schoolgirl mysteriously disappeared, and her vanishing amid a deeply divided society raised countless questions and suspicions. Was there a political motive behind her disappearance, or was it simply a tragic accident? The only evidence the police had were surveillance camera clips capturing her final moments and her unusually strange behavior. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we will try to unravel this chilling mystery. The Hong Kong girl in our story is named Chen Yian Lam, whom I will call Lam. From birth, she faced many hardships. Her parents divorced when she was very young, leaving her to live with her grandfather. This event left a deep scar on her young heart, turning an otherwise cheerful and innocent child into a melancholic girl for months. Despite her difficult family life, Lam was an exceptionally bright student, consistently achieving excellent academic results almost every year. Moreover, she was a school swimming athlete, representing her school in competitions and bringing home numerous awards. Lam was friendly and well-liked by all her peers. By the age of 15, she had discovered a passion for fashion clothing design and architecture. She decided to enroll in a design academy in Hong Kong to pursue her dream. However, while studying, Lam had to take part-time jobs in restaurants to cover tuition fees, alleviating some of the financial burden on her grandfather. The need to wake up early for classes and work late into the night gradually weakened Lam's health. She began suffering from frequent shortness of breath and headaches, requiring regular medical checkups. Despite the hardships of life at 15, Lam persevered, going to school and work every day, with the hope that one day her dream of becoming a famous designer would come true. In 2019, Hong Kong witnessed large-scale protests against the government triggered by plans to amend the extradition law, which would allow criminal suspects to be sent to mainland China for trial. Most residents opposed this change, fearing excessive interference from China in their lives. Most protesters were young people. However, government measures to handle demonstrations often worsened the situation. State agencies frequently used force to disperse crowds, affecting even passers-by who were unrelated. Lam too participated in ongoing protests against the government for several months. On the evening of May 10, 2019, Lam was on her way to a shopping mall. Though she wasn't directly protesting that day, she was affected by tear gas used to disperse crowds. She filmed the scene on her phone and later posted it on social media. In the video, Lam appeared terrified, tears streaming down her face, coughing heavily from the gas. About a month later, Lam's daily routine continued: morning classes and evening part-time work. But on the night of June 18th, strange events began. Lam's grandfather said he was startled awake around 3 a.m. by a clattering noise from Lam's room. Fearing an intruder, he rushed to her room and discovered Lam was simply tidying up and organizing her belongings. She told him she couldn't sleep and decided to get up and do something productive. Lam kept working in her room all night, refusing to sleep. The next morning, around 11 a.m., when she arrived at the academy, Lam rested her head on her backpack and fell asleep on the floor at the back of the classroom. She ignored everyone, and her friends and teachers had to wake her up to return to her seat. Once back at her desk, she sent her friends a strange, playful message. "Too scary, I couldn't sleep last night, so I cleaned my room all night until morning." Crazy, right? Then Lam rested her head on the desk and continued sleeping. That afternoon after school, Lam walked home with her friends. While waiting for the train, she told them that she would return to the academy that evening, but didn't explain why or who she would meet. None of her friends dared to ask further, thinking she might have personal matters or an appointment with a teacher. On the train ride home at a mid-route station, Lam suddenly told her friends that she would get off to visit a shopping center, a place she normally didn't go. Just a few minutes after stepping off the train, she sent another strange message to her friends. "Doing this is really rude. Do you know that?" Her friends were puzzled, not understanding whom she was referring to or what she meant, but none of them felt suspicious. They assumed Lam might have been messaging someone else and accidentally sent it to the group. What no one knew was that this strange message would be her last. That night, Lam did not return home. At first, her grandfather was not overly worried, assuming she might have gone to her mother's house to sleep since Lam and her mother often stayed in contact. However, when he called Lam's mother, she had no idea where Lam was. Concerned, her grandfather tried contacting Lam's friends, but no one knew her whereabouts. Everyone assumed she had gone home as usual. This was highly unusual, as Lam was a responsible girl who always returned home on time and never stayed out late. Her grandfather decided to report her disappearance to the police. However, the authorities did not act immediately. They only took the information as regulations required, waiting 24 hours before starting a missing person search. The police suspected Lam might have simply gone out with friends and would return on her own, a scenario they often encountered. That day, Lam's grandfather and family members searched everywhere on their own but found no clues. Once the 24-hour period elapsed, the police began their search, but also with no results. Despite questioning almost all of Lam's friends and acquaintances and surveying routes from home to the academy and restaurants she frequented, they found no evidence. On the morning of June 22nd, about 3 days after her disappearance, a fisherman discovered a strange object floating at sea near the coast. He hurried to check and found it was the nude body of a woman face down in the water. The fisherman immediately called the police to retrieve the body. Examinations quickly confirmed the body was that of Chen Yian Lam, the 15-year-old girl who had gone missing days before. Autopsy results showed she had been dead for at least 48 hours, about 2 days. No signs of impact or assault were found on her body. Importantly, there were no traces of male bodily fluids, poison drugs, or even physical restraint. The police concluded that her death was self-inflicted, suggesting she may have been overwhelmed by stress or a problem she couldn't escape. Naturally, the police's conclusion faced strong objections from Lam's family, friends, and acquaintances. They argued that if Lam had truly decided to jump into the water, why would she have removed all her clothes? This suggested the involvement of another hand and raised suspicions that authorities might be concealing the truth. So Lam's friends and a group of protesters decided to head to the design academy she attended, demanding the surveillance footage from the 19th, the last day before Lam went missing. On that day, Lam had told her friends she would return to the academy in the evening to take care of something. They hoped the CCTV footage could show what Lam did at the academy that day, and whether anyone was involved in her disappearance. Initially, the academy did not cooperate in providing these video evidences, but the protesters increasingly applied pressure and even resorted to violence. Finally, the academy had to release 2 clips showing Lam's behavior that evening. The first clip at 5:50 p.m. that day showed Lam entering the elevator from the basement and pressing the button to go up. She was carrying a folder and a handbag. At that time, another man also entered the elevator and stood next to her. When the elevator reached Lam's floor, she exited normally. But at that moment, it seemed the man was about to follow her out of the elevator, and then the video suddenly cut. The second clip, released by the academy, was about an hour later at 6:59 p.m. The front camera recorded Lam leaving the academy gate normally. This evidence seemed to confirm that Lam was safe, and no one at the academy had done anything to her that evening. Of course, all of Lam's friends still felt suspicious. The time between the first and second clips lasted about an hour, and during that time they could not know whether the man in the elevator did anything to Lam or not. After watching the 2 videos, Lam's friends immediately felt something was wrong. They believed the academy was hiding a secret. Therefore, they decided to gather again in protest in front of the academy, demanding the academy quickly provide all video evidence about Lam. But the academy still did not immediately provide the remaining clips. This made the protesters even more angry. They began to use force to damage property in the academy, leading to several scuffles between students and staff. Finally, the police had to intervene to prevent things from getting out of control. After 3 days of pressure from the protesters, the academy had to provide all the video evidence, totaling more than 1 hour. The footage started with the scene where the suspicious man seemed to follow Lam out of the elevator. In fact, he only moved slightly to press the elevator door close button and stayed inside as normal. He did not follow Lam or do anything to her as many people thought. After Lam exited the elevator, she went straight to the stairwell. Her unusual behavior during this time was pacing up and down the stairs multiple times as if thinking about something. Around 6:27 p.m., she went up to the rooftop and walked back and forth as if searching for someone she had arranged to meet. Then she returned to the elevator area and pressed the elevator button. Strangely, when she pressed the button, she did not wait for the elevator to arrive, but continued going to the stairwell, pacing up and down. She repeated this behavior several times, returning to the elevator area a few minutes later and doing the same thing. About 5 minutes later, at 6:36 p.m., she went to the rooftop again. This time, if you watch the surveillance camera closely, you can see she was walking barefoot. She wandered in a daze on the rooftop for about 5 minutes, then went back to the elevator and repeated the previous behavior, pressing the button, then walking up and down the stairs strangely. Finally, she went to the cafeteria area, walked along the hallway, and exited the building. At 6:59 p.m., the front camera captured her leaving the academy gate barefoot. This was the last evidence of her before she mysteriously disappeared and was found 3 days later at sea. Besides the unusual behavior in the videos, one of Lam's friends discovered an important detail. In the first video, when she entered the elevator, Lam carried a folder and a handbag. But later in the subsequent videos, these items had disappeared. Upon discovering this, the students immediately returned to the academy to look for Lam's belongings. They hoped these items might contain some information or secrets. Eventually, they found Lam's folder and handbag left on the first floor. The folder contained school-related papers, nothing unusual. But inside the handbag, they found $30 in cash, Lam's student ID, and her mobile phone. Surprisingly, the SIM card in the phone had been removed and discarded. Up to this point, even with all the CCTV footage and the evidence found in her bag, there was still no clear answer as to what had actually happened to Lam that evening. Had someone been following her after she left the academy? Nevertheless, the police's official conclusion was to close the case, stating that Lam had jumped into the water on her own, possibly due to stress, accumulated tension, or psychological issues. Of course, this case left many people feeling unsettled and skeptical of the police conclusion, leading to numerous debates and theories. Hypothesis 1: Government intervention. The protesters believed the government might have deliberately sent someone to handle Lam and then dispose of the evidence by throwing her into the sea. The reason for the government to do this could have been to warn dissenters about the consequences of their actions, or because the government was displeased with Lam posting a video about pepper spray online, sparking strong criticism. However, if the government truly wanted to eliminate someone, they would likely target the leaders. Moreover, if this was the action of a state agency, they would probably handle the evidence in a more sophisticated way. Hypothesis 2: Government using a decoy. This theory also assumes the government caused the situation. Lam could have been taken care of earlier that afternoon when she parted ways with her friends at the subway station. And the woman seen on CCTV that evening might have been a decoy very similar in appearance to Lam, sent to create the illusion of her presence at the academy. But this theory seems unlikely, as all friends' family and Lam's grandfather confirmed after viewing all the CCTV footage that the girl in the video was indeed Lam. Moreover, her grandfather confirmed that the clothes Lam wore when leaving home that day were exactly the same as in the footage. Therefore, the person in the video could not have been anyone else. Hypothesis 3: A mysterious meeting and possible attack. This theory suggests that the incident was unrelated to state authorities, but that someone might have arranged to meet Lam at the academy that evening. CCTV footage showed Lam's behavior as if she were searching or waiting for someone. That day, the perpetrator might have suddenly changed the meeting location, lured her out of the building, and caused her death by throwing her into the sea. Although this hypothesis seems more plausible than the first two, the autopsy revealed no signs of assault or external force on Lam's body. If someone had tried to force her into the water suddenly while she was conscious, the likelihood of drowning would have been low, as Lam was a skilled swimmer. One of the most regrettable and suspicious aspects of the case is that the autopsy did not include a diatom test. Diatoms commonly found in natural water could have confirmed whether she had been killed before entering the water or had fallen in while conscious. Instinctively, when drowning, humans struggle breathe and inhale water. That is why medical teams usually find diatoms in drowning victims. Unfortunately, this method could no longer be applied as Lam's body had been cremated according to religious customs. The final hypothesis suggests that nothing involved the government or any mysterious individual, but that the story originated entirely from Lam herself. This hypothesis is divided into two main reasons. Hypothesis 4. Lam's psychological and mental health issues. These trace back to her childhood when her parents divorced, which caused a lasting emotional wound. A few months before her disappearance, her grandfather mentioned that she had been hospitalized for respiratory issues, stress, and insomnia. Sometimes she told her grandfather that she heard voices and continuous chatter in her head throughout the day. Therefore, doctors had to prescribe sedatives and initially diagnosed Lam with a form of mental disorder. All these factors could have caused her to act without full awareness. Beyond the information about her medical condition and treatment history shared by her grandfather, a few weeks before Lam disappeared, a clip was uploaded to social media by internet users. In the clip, a girl could be seen sitting on the sidewalk crying frantically. Upon closer inspection, the figure of this girl closely resembled Lam. This led many to conclude that if the girl in the clip was indeed Lam, it could serve as clear evidence that her psychological state at the time was critical. Hypothesis 5. Voluntary action for personal symbolic reasons. Lam had no mental health issues, but she decided to act for a personal reason. Some analysts studying the CCTV footage from that day noted that her pacing back and forth on the academy rooftop resembled someone contemplating a struggle within themselves, considering whether or not to jump. A notable detail was that she walked barefoot in that area. Some observers connected this behavior to Japanese culture, where people are expected to remove their shoes upon entering a home. Therefore, some believe that Lam removing her shoes this time could have been a mental preparation for her journey to the other world, her new home, according to these beliefs. These are all the hypotheses I have compiled for everyone to analyze and consider which one might have truly happened to Lam. Beyond these points, many questions remain, and people in Hong Kong are still debating what actually happened to the 15-year-old student Chen Yian Lam on the evening of May 19, 2019. And that concludes the story I wanted to share with you in today's video. After watching, what are your thoughts? Leave your comments and share your opinions below the video. Before saying goodbye, don't forget to hit like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss my next stories. See you in the upcoming videos.